God bless you. Again, we meet on this platform to encourage one another and to offer guidance, not of our own selves, but really to look at the scriptures, and in particular what Solomon here has been sharing with us. At least I should say, and we could say, if you've been following us for over the last two chapters, including chapter 10, about living living wisely day by day, and also following wise counsel. We do need, so that at particular times, at particular points of our lives on our journey through this life, we do need wise individuals to share counsel so that we can know how we ought to live wisely and godly and sober in this present world, in this present life. This particular passage, or in the last passage we looked at in our last session, we looked at um, and we were told that foolish behavior is dangerous. Foolish behavior, even if it's in small doses. Uh, and Solomon, the teacher, the preacher, the king of Israel, he said to us, at least in the first verse, that a fly, dead flies makes perfumed oil to stink. So even if it's a small fly, doesn't have to be a wasp or a blue bottle fly or any other fly that you can think of or call. You may be one. A biologist is that, or someone that studies wildlife. You may know the different types of flies that you have around you, flies that probably label them. All they do is cause you to become miserable. He doesn't say what type of fly. Solomon doesn't go down to the nitty gritty of saying what type of fly. He's just saying that flies makes the perfume oil to stink. Yeah. Same thing. It's it doesn't have to be anything big and great and behaving foolishly. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be something that you may think is quite insignificant because hardly anybody knows about it. But yet still, it causes the the life of a particular individual to become completely derailed, so to speak. They're not able at all to really be the man or the woman or the individual that God really was was wanting one to be. However, that God can still use that individual. God can still use that particular individual to touch lives. And I'm sure you know of many. I'm sure you know of one or two. If you don't know a lot, you may know the one or two individuals that because of a mistake, senseless mistake that they made, it completely derailed them. And they were never again the same individual that they were before the foolish mistake that they made. However, Solomon here he he drops um, um, a little word of wisdom here. I don't know if you've ever noticed it. I don't know if you've ever read this particular verse. You never read it, but you just you know like uh, when you're driving on the road, you don't look at every inch of the tarmac, do you? You know it's the road, and you've just flown over it. But when you look more closely at it, you'll notice uh, something that you have not noticed before. And this one verse here is something that, for me personally, probably, well, probably not. But this is one verse that, that I have not really taken notice of as much as we're going to be doing it today. Verse 4, we're just looking at one verse today. Verse 4 from the King James Version says, if the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thyself, or leave not thy place, for yielding pacifier great offenses. Let's read it again. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against thee, leave not thy place, for yielding pacifier great offenses. Let's read that same verse, chapter 10 of Ecclesiastes and verse 4. If a ruler gets angry at you, stay at your post, because calmness soothes great offenses. Let's read it again. If a ruler gets angry at you, stay at your post, because calmness soothes great offenses. Solomon, as I said just in a few moments ago, Solomon is offering advice now on dealing with those in authority. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a king, a prime minister, the president. It could be anyone who has power or authority at any governmental level. Again, whether that be in the workplace, could be in church, it could be anywhere. People, yes, because they are flesh and blood, you may have done something, or you may have said something that wasn't quite right, or they didn't understand, or whatever the case may be, but they're angry with you. The Bible tells us that you can be angry and sin not. So they may not be very happy with you. However, however, it's someone who is an authority. They're angry with you. Solomon is advising those around them. Can you imagine now? People around Solomon in the great hall, or he's in the garden, or he's walking, or wherever he is, or he's in your church, he's in your room, he's in your hall. People are listening to you. People are listening to him, let us say. And he's advising those around him to respond, how to respond when a leader, when one who is in authority becomes angry. Two things he's saying here. One, do not resign, do not quit. That's the first thing he's saying. Remember, the first half of verse 4 says, if a ruler gets angry, stay at your post. So don't resign, don't quit. And the second point that Solomon is saying, wise words here. The second point he's saying, be calm and correct the mistake. Be calm and correct the mistake. What does the second half of verse 4 say? Because calmness soothes great offenses. Calmness soothes great offenses. Let's just take half a second to look at the first point. Don't quit. Do not. Solomon, the teacher, he's teaching now. I don't think he's preaching so much, but he's teaching. He's telling those who's around him, and he's sharing with us that we must not forfeit our position or desert our duty because someone in a higher position gets upset with us. He's saying, do not make an unwise decision based on hurt feelings. Just because you may get a bit bruised, just because you may be battered a little, don't quit. Don't resign. Don't resign. Do not make an unwise decision. Sometimes that's not what he's really looking for you. He may be upset with you. The one who is over you may be upset with you, but may not be upset with you to the point that he wants you to resign. And sometimes we do this because our feelings are hurt, or we become embarrassed, or we ourselves may be angry, may be displaced a bit. Even if we feel that we are being wronged or disrespected, Solomon is saying, do not react by doing something that is foolish. And sometimes it is foolish over the things. I have done some foolish things in my past. Have you? Are you honest enough? Great strength is in the individual when they can own up to the situations of themselves to say that they were wrong to do what they did. Not wrong in the sense of that it is a sin. It's not a sin. Solomon is not saying that it's sinful for you to resign. No. If you're resigned or quit your post, it's not a sin. But it may be a foolish decision that one has made when that was not was really called for. So we have to remember the things that we do is from the heart. It comes out of the heart. And if our hearts are corrupt, if there's an unsavory smell coming from the heart, then it shows that we will make foolish decisions. And could it also be said that we are also a fool? Now, I'm not calling you a fool. No. Hear what I'm saying here. Not that anybody, well, the scriptures tell us that we must not call anybody fool. No. But sometimes, or at times, the decisions that one makes because of what the heart, the condition, the state of the heart, because of the corruptness of the heart, the state of the heart, we make foolish decisions which only a fool makes. The second point here is be calm and correct the mistake. We must not be fueled by our emotions. And we are all emotive. We are all guided at times by our emotions. West Indians, we, we are very emotional beings. And there are some cultures that show the emotions more than others. That doesn't mean that because you may be one particular culture that and you don't show it doesn't mean that you don't have any emotion. Yes, you are also governed by your emotions, but we must not be fueled. We must not only be moved by our emotions. It is best to wait until you have calmed down and your emotions are under control before taking any action. That is something that we all at times battle with. Some more and some less. But we're moved by emotions. And sometimes, yes, we all may be very much in our rights to do, to say, or to act in the way that um, we believe that we should. But then when we take a step back, when we remain calm, something else shows, something else comes, and we see things differently. Words hastily spoken out of emotion, which is hurt or anger, are often irresponsible and inappropriate. Worst of all, once spoken, you can't take them back. We all know that. Once words are released, they cannot be recalled. You will be far more successful in confronting the offender when you can do so in a more controlled manner. Disrespectful, emotionally charged words will only worsen the situation. A calm and a quiet spirit, one that allows the righteousness of God to take over before responding, will promote a healing of relationships and the anger that of the authoritative figure. We must remain calm. Christ, in the most in the most charged uh, situation that he was in, he always remained calm. It's only once we see where Christ was angry and he displayed his anger. Can you remember? If we can properly say he was angry, was when he overturned the money changers and he exclaimed that this house, his father's house, is a house of prayer. But what did they make it into? A den of thieves, business place. That angered the Lord. But in other areas, in other things, he was always calm. He was always cool. He was always collected. Always. And I believe that's a good example for you, for me. Let us remain composed when people of authority become angry with us. When we remain calm, when we remain composed, then we may even win over that individual, the king, or the businessman, or the manager, or the supervisor that may be over you, one that, or the pastor, the deacon, the care group leader, the cell group leader, even your own wife, your husband, or your friend. It doesn't really have to be someone who has immense power that we must remain composed over. But it's those who are probably even our own peers that we must remain calm and composed. And yes, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be an easy thing. No, we are flesh and blood, and we are at times ruled by what we believe, you know, is right. But only, my friend, only when we are in Christ in God. And I want to encourage you. Solomon, Solomon, I believe he must have been, at one point, he must have been a very angry man. He could have been a very impulsive man, and probably he was. But again, looking at his words here, looking at what we're reading, he is he is one that seems to have learned from his mistakes, and he has become wise also, not only with what God had placed in him, but in looking back over his life's decisions as he lived, as he moved amongst the world, those who are around him, having to deal with particular uh, situations and circumstances of his life. Yes, he must have become wise in that area. He must have become very wise in his life. What a wise man! I really would have loved to meet Solomon. And you know what? I believe I'm going to meet him one of these days. I want to live a life so that when the Lord comes, when we all get to glory, Solomon is one man I want to meet. I want to ask him, Solomon, King Solomon, if at all he's going to be allowed to be called king, how did you deal with all them women? That's one great question that I'd like to know, how he dealt with all of them. And we can hardly deal with the one, and some of you have two or three. I don't know. I don't know how it's done, but he did it. So, that's one question that I'd like to ask. But over and above that, let us learn to live righteously. Let us learn to be calm, to be cool, and to be collected. Not only in our demeanor, but also because we have Christ.